Welcome to my channel. I'm the Dark Lord of Optics, and what I bring you here is a thinking man's take on guns and optics with occasional forays into politics. Thank you for being here. Alright, this is an official kickoff of the Dark Lord's I Hate New Mexico Politicians project. I live in New Mexico, I live in Albuquerque. Our esteemed politicians are trying to push through a shit ton of completely ridiculous gun laws. They call them gun control. It's not gun control, it's basically civil disarmament laws. It's the best way of saying that. And if all of that comes through, New Mexico is going to be more restrictive than California. On one hand, I'd like to think that the good people of New Mexico are not going to let this bullshit through. On the other hand, we have more or less the same politicians that we've been electing for a little while. So there is no real evidence that sanity and common sense are going to prevail. New Mexico is moving toward the same style of totalitarian control that the Democrats and the federal government want, and it is the same style of totalitarian control that California politicians have been installing. New Mexico is moving in the same direction. One of the things they're trying to do, they're trying to ban all the semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s and all that. And the way things are, I can't move right now. The way things are going, I don't see a future for myself in this state unless I can get a couple 100,000 conservatives from California to move to New Mexico, and then we can swing this state back. It's not a big state. In the meantime, I need to be prepared for not being able to have any of my semi-automatic rifles in the state of New Mexico. To that extent, I decided that it makes sense for me to take a lever gun that I have, and this is what you see. This is a Henry side loader all-weather in the 57 Mag 38 Special, and see if I can set it up to be a better home defense gun, if you wish. It's going to be a multi-stage project. There are several things I'm considering. The first one, excuse me, was to deal with the sight. So I had it originally set up as a sort of a hunting rifle. It had a DNZ mount with a 227 old Leupold scope on it. And the first thing that I did, I got a lever rail from XS Sights. I like XS Sights. They're a good company. I've been using their products on ARs, AKs, and a few other things for quite a long time. And they make this longish rail that attaches to the receiver and attaches to the dovetail where the rear sight used to be. That allows me a very significant amount of flexibility in terms of optic mounting options. I think I'll be making some other modifications to this gun. I'll talk about that in a moment. But before I do all of that, what I wanted to do was basically put a red dot on it and do a little bit more shooting with it and make sure I'm happy with the rest of it. And that will guide how I can modify this thing further. A red dot sight here you see is my trusty old Shield SIS. It hasn't failed me yet, so I use this, move it from gun to gun and do things with it all the time. I like this sight a lot. It works well for me. It stays zero. It's about as close to indestructible as I've seen to date. And while normally I use it on ARs, AKs and stuff like that, this is the first time it sits on a lever gun. It comes with several different spacers for different height mounting. This is the lowest, and I'm experimenting to see how it works on this guy. Honestly, it is not bad, but with the normal Henry stock that is designed to look at iron sights. So I retained for now the front sight. One of the things I forgot to mention, so for the 4570 Henry, what XS sights now do, and here's the picture, they have a rail. On the back of the rail there is a spot for the rear sight, and then they set it up with a taller front sight, so you have basically longer sight radius irons that you can maybe even co-witness through a red dot, but either way you do have backup sights. It's not yet available for the 57 Magnum Henry, and but they're planning to release it, so eventually it will have backup iron sights. But in the meantime, I want to try it with a red dot, and maybe I'll try another optic or two. If I'm thinking of this as a sort of a general purpose gun, there are a couple of reasons why I'm looking at the lever gun. One is that these things are fast, right? If you are not a lever gun guy, The basic thing here, because in a bolt gun, to cycle the bolt, you have to release your hand, you have to move it and get it back on, right? With the practice, you can do it. With a lever gun, you basically don't have to do much, right? You shoot, cycle. Now this one's going to load the live rounds in the magazine. You get it back, and you're on there. You didn't have to release your grip. Okay? It is really, really quick. A lot quicker than a bolt gun is for most people. I did some experiments. When I really focus, I put a timer. I am a little bit faster with the lever gun than I am with other things. And one of the reasons I went with the essentially pistol caliber 38 Special 357 Magnum is that the travel of the lever is comparatively short. Okay. I'm not the best lever gun shooter in the world. If you will go watch the way cowboy shooting guys do it, it's pretty incredible. But also I don't practice with the lever gun all that much, and now I am going to start. And the fact that it does use 37 mag and 38 special, 38 special becomes a less expensive plinking ammo. Once you have a red dot sight in the rail, so right now I'm lined up with the dot being right in the center of the field of view, and you see that this is more of a chin weld. It's reasonable chin weld, but not really cheek weld, right? Cheek weld would have been here, and that would be for the original iron sights. So knowing that, there are a couple of things I'm going to try. I'm going to keep the stock the same. This is some sort of a laminated wood, I think, with the polymer coating to protect it from weather, which is fine. The stock is perfectly reasonable. They do have now very tactical looking stocks for these and all that, but that's, if I do that, that's going to be the last thing I do. And even then, only to get adjustable length of pull so that my wife and kids can use it. It's, I think, a 14-inch length of pull, so it would be a little bit long for the smaller members of my family. I am gonna have somewhere shoot a stock pack, which basically wraps around this thing and raises the top surface a little bit and gives me an ammo carrier. I'm probably going to start by putting that on the stock and leaving that alone. The handguard, on the other hand, I am going to replace. It's perfectly reasonable. It's a nice handguard. It is a little bit on the short side, which in principle, you know, for hunting and all that is fine. But I prefer something a little bit longer because of the way I grip the gun if I want to go a little bit faster. And also I'd like to be able to put a flashlight on it. And putting a flashlight on it on the tube, I'm sure there are some mounts somewhere, but there are a couple of companies, Ranger Point, Precision, and Midwest Industries, that do essentially a M-lock style handguard that gives me a bunch of options for mounting a flashlight on it. If I'm thinking of this as potentially becoming my home defense gun, illumination is a big deal. And I have a couple of different ideas for flashlights, and in order to experiment with them, I will have to put on a different handguard. The other thing I'm gonna try to do is thread the barrel and see what I can do. They haven't banned suppressors yet. I do have a 9mm suppressor that will work here, the Erector 9 from Q. But the way this gun is set up, I'm not quite 100% confident I'll have enough space for it, because the plug for the magazine tube comes up right up here. Maybe a little bit too close. Henry has a different model that's already threaded, slightly shorter magazine tube. This particular one has a 20-inch barrel. It's longer than I like for the application, but the action is very short. Overall, the rifle is, about 37 inches long. So it is a pretty handy thing, but if you have a suppressor on it, it starts getting a little bit longer. Henry's Axe models, I think, are a couple inches shorter. I think it's a 17.5-inch barrel. This is a 20. Now the catch with lever guns here, I'm slightly less opposed to a longer barrel because, you know, longer magazine tube means more rounds. This fits a 10 plus 1 in the chamber. A shorter one will have a lower mag capacity, but it will be handy, especially with the suppressor. So I need to think a little bit about it and see how that's going to go. So there will be other installments of this project. I am just kicking it off, but the first thing I always want to do is get the sighting system worked out. The first sight I'm trying, as I said, is a Shield SIS. The rail from XS Sights is absolutely perfect. This was not intended to be a review of the XS lever rail, but I'm really happy with it. Absolutely solid, nothing has moved. Point of aim staying there, and the length is pretty good. I could even, if I really wanted to have a setup, I could even come up with irons, shorter range iron sights, one in the front here, one in the back here. It could witness through a red dot. I don't think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna wait for Henry to get their backup irons properly worked out, and then I'm going to see if I can find a red dot sight that will mount low enough to co-witness through it. In the meantime, once I am done, well, I am more or less done convincing myself that it does work well with the red dot sight. The next couple of optics I'm going to experiment with will be the 1X microprisms from Primary Arms. Should be an interesting combination, and I have a SWFA ultralight 2.5 to 10 by 32 scope, which weighs less than 10 ounces, and that would become probably a very nice option for this rifle when it is in its hunting configuration. Here's what it looks like with the SWFA. Stay tuned for further updates. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening, and good shooting.